Shobna Bhartiya, Bill Gates, Mr. Rishad Premji, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, given India's unique complexities and given India's huge divergences across language, culture, languages, India's challenges are truly unique. They're unique and they're very different from the Western part of the world. They're unique because 1 in 2 women in India are anemic. They're unique because India's learning outcomes leave a lot to be desired. And they're unique because India needs to create a very healthy society, and health outcomes leave a lot to be done on. And therefore, unlike the Western world, which is innovating for driverless cars, India needs to innovate for many of its social challenges. And these innovations cannot be incremental. They need to be made in a quantum manner. And India needs to make a massive jump forward using technology and leveraging technology for growth. We in Niti Aayog run a program called we cover about 115 of the most backward districts of India. We don't call them the backward districts. We call them the aspirational districts of India. But we make them compete on 49 indicators across nutrition, education, health. And we track them on a real-time basis with third-party data flowing in on a minute-to-minute basis on a dashboard which is called Champions of Change. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation helps us in track this data from grassroots level onwards. We put this data out in public domain, and each one of these districts are competing on a real-time basis, and we've seen in the last 1 year a huge transformation taking place simply because we are measuring change. We are putting data in public domain, and because everyone is competing. We are naming and shaming them on poor performance, and simply because good governance has now become good administration and good politics. And therefore, we've seen a massive amount of transformation taking place in these districts simply using technology. In the Banka district of Bihar, which is one of the most backward districts of India, a young collector used his mobile to transform education and improve learning outcomes through an app called Mera Mobile, Mera Vidyalaya, My Mobile, My Education. He's put education in the palms of the students there. And therefore, huge improvement in learning outcomes have taken place. We've seen transformation taking place across nutrition because we are tracking every single pregnant woman and every single child in these aspirational districts. I have no doubt in my mind that the challenge before these districts, that in 3 years' time, they must become the best performing districts of their state, and in 5 years, they must become the best performing districts of India, will be more than met. And if you are able to transform the 115 districts of India, you would really be transforming India in many, many ways and actually spearhead India to a high trajectory growth rate. Without this, India can never aim to achieve a high trajectory growth rate over a 3-decade period on a sustained basis. Just not possible. But what we've done in many ways is by tracking data, we've brought in a huge amount of data. What India has done otherwise is that we are the only country in the world which has 1,200 million biometrics. We are the only country in the world which has 1,200 million mobiles. And we are the only country in the world which has today 1,200 million bank accounts. Between 2014 and 2018, every second bank account opened across the world was opened in India. Over 58% of the accounts were opened in India. In last 2 years, we've opened bank accounts for 191 million women. And therefore, this has been the biggest financial inclusion program in the world, to my mind. And what really we've done When I was a young officer, I had just started my career in Kerala. I was working in the traditional fisheries sector of Kerala, and my job was to lift these traditional fishermen and ensure that they get a higher marketed price for their catch. They used to just get about 18% of the market price of catch. We provided them new technology, we provided them new fiberglass crafts, we provided them new nets, which were then known as the disco nets, but it was a nightmare to open their bank accounts. I used to run after bank managers. It used to take me 7 to 8 months to open their bank accounts. Today, about a month back, I walked into a bank and I opened my bank account in exactly 55-second flats using my biometric. And therefore, we brought in a huge revolution, and it's the revolution of technology. And therefore, if you look at India, it's not just the biometric, it's not just the mobile. Our data consumption, our mobile data consumption is more than the mobile data consumption of USA and China put together. Our cost of data is 1/10 the cost of UK. Our cost of data is 1/20th the cost of United States of America. And what has India done? It's thrown up vast amount of data, not merely through biometrics. The entire government program of public finance management is all digital. We can't release a single paisa without being digital. The new Ayushman Bharat scheme, which provides health insurance to 500 million Indians, which is more than the population of USA, Europe, and Mexico put together, is cashless, paperless. It's totally portable. The unified payment interface, and we do digital payment. 1.5 years, I have not used my debit card, credit card. I only make payment through my BHIM app. It's totally digital. And therefore, what India has done is to become data rich before it has become rich. We've thrown up massive amount of data. And therefore, this data will fuel change. It will enable machine learning. It will enable a vast number of our young startups today to use a huge amount of data to spearhead change. Unlike America, where data is owned by Google and Facebook, unlike China, where it's owned by Alibaba and Baidu, we have created public entities. UIDAI, which owns Aadhaar, is a public entity. Ayushman Bharat is a public entity. 97%, 99.6% of Indians pay direct tax online. 96% of it gets settled within a period of 4 months. It's all digital. And therefore, all the data is owned by public entities, but we've allowed private sector to innovate on top of that. And therefore, you have Google Pay, you have Paytm, you have PhonePe, many of them innovating. And therefore, we are opening up data sets in an anonymous manner to academicians and researchers. We are opening them to over 1,000 artificial intelligence startups in India. And therefore, you'll have many, many startups in India. Look at what SigTuple is doing. Look at what Tricog is doing. Or look at what a young girl called Aditi doing in the villages of Rajasthan. She runs an artificial intelligence startup called Imbibe. And she tracks every single student on the performance in their subjects, much like we track Uber vehicles longitudinally and latitudinally. And then depending on the performance of the students, she provides extra dosage of education. And learning outcomes have radically improved in these districts. And similarly, many other startups like Satcho or Valsar Labs, who have brought in a huge revolution in the agriculture sector, ensuring that farmers get fertilizer and seeds depending on the weather and soil condition on a real-time basis. And therefore, what we are witnessing today is a massive radical transformation by sheer use of technology. 3 years back, 2.5 years back, Mr. Bill Gates came and gave us a very visionary lecture at the Niti lecture series, which was attended by the Prime Minister and the entire cabinet colleagues. All the top layers of the bureaucracy was there. The lesson that came out from his lecture was that India just can't afford to be incremental. India needs an explosive pace of technological growth. We are the country with the highest number of STEM graduates. We cannot afford to be status quoist, nor can we afford to be another Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley may be the most innovative place in the world, but it has no challenges. All the challenges of the world are in India. And if we Indians can find solution for the 1.3 billion people of India, we are finding a solution not for India or the 1.3 billion people of India, but for the 7.5 billion people of the world who will move from poverty to middle class in the next decade and a half. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.